Video games. I love them, you love them, we're all gamers here in the virtual realm. Being the gamers we are, it's a tough challenge to pick our favorite. I got a challenge of a question from Raz long ago that I already filmed, and they saw the answer. However, I was super tired when I was filming that video, so it's just kind of a long like butt ramble. A good ramble, but one that I know from hindsight of releasing other videos, most viewers aren't gonna care for. Cause like situations where it's just like, it's technically a video game, but like a lot of people don't. Yeah. Thus I am standing here in the world of Furry Aqua within VR chat once again to tell you which is my most favoriteest video game genre in all of gaming. Unless you've seen the early access Patreon video from last year, in which case you're relearning the answer, but with more coherency and better points in less time. Yay future! The video game medium is a massive library of different authors and players contributing vast works of interactions that trying to pick your favorite game is basically a forced nightmare. How is anyone expected to throw away their nostalgic childhood games for shiny modern games that have had the time to analyze past trends with better documentation? Nostalgic childhood titles made gamers like me who they are today, and even could have helped ease disabilities like, I don't know, pulling one out at random, dyslexia. Yet modern titles are so amazing and new, relaxing, annoying, basically every emotion under the sun ways. That's not even getting into the discussion of what truly is a video game, because there's people who perceive games like the Stanley Parable as not video gamey enough while loving and legitimizing gacha game system waifus. Plus the origin of what we consider a video game can be nebulous, not to mention the recency bias affecting our games list. You know, picking a favorite game is basically just asking how one feels on the day, which is what I'm saying. So you'd think that a favorite genre would be easier to answer, for that's basically asking about the vibes of a person. What's the person's priorities? But here's the truth. Video game genres aren't super great at categorizing or summarizing games. Take one of my favorite games, the original Portal. If I told you that it's a first-person shooter, many would say that I'm being dumb, that I shouldn't say that is not correct. But looking at another favorite game of mine, Call of Duty World at War, the game loop allows me to figure out tactics of battles, puzzling out where one should go on the map to ambush and invade players, how to sneak through a space. Sure, Call of Duty's main function as a first-person shooter is violence through guns on a surface level. The COD lingo is a good example of that functionality. But beyond corporations beating a dead horse when they should have just given their credits to the Yippee bug, Call of Duty has existed so long because it's not just a click and pew at the correct time simulator. Portal on its surface is you, the player, exploring the experimental facility in the first person perspective where you're testing out the portal gun. Your target is hitting walls and ensuring enemy robots don't kill you. If you're describing those mechanics to a person, they may just picture a Doom clone such as Call of Duty. So the emotional core of a game's mechanics or story can contradict the genre you're trying to match. Most people are going to call Portal a puzzle game because your actions overall are trying to solve different types of puzzles to proceed. Call of Duty is a first-person shooter Doom clone's kin because the overall goal is to shoot enemies to proceed. But such delineation of spaces goes out the window with RPGs. At least with FPS games, you need to mechanically be in the first person and shoot. Then you change the genres if the essence of the game loop doesn't truly give FPS. But RPGs are just everything. Role-playing games originally came from the scenes like Dungeons & Dragons where you role-play a character. Dragon Quest is such a mythological title for transferring the complex D&D gameplay loop to an easily accessible binary input system on the Famicom controller, one which still feels expansive and venturesome, at least to those who enjoy playing older console titles. Nowadays it's a very generic game because everyone copied it. Sorry, I meant to say heavily inspired? But seriously, Dragon Quest made video game tropes including what the starting room of games should be. Back on track, what elements of RPGs are just for the role-playing game? Is VR Chat a role-playing game because of its level system? Because you explore worlds? Because I'm playing as a character which looks different from myself, even if I perceive my persona as just being me but furry? People do unironically roleplay in VR Chat. You do have to build up the empty game worlds with others to produce the real game. VR Chat hits much closer to the emotional core of D&D than some modern games that call themselves RPGs or have RPG elements. But at the end of the day, an RPG fan isn't going to think of VR Chat in their top 10 RPG list. There are inherent assumptions and biases to what gamers include in genres, and more often than not, it's easier to list a bunch of games one likes rather than say an exact genre. Even subgenres don't fully fix this issue, because the video game medium is still early enough in its life cycle to where basic genres are living categories with very arbitrary traits to assign. These genres aren't useless, you just have to remember that you can't use Doom Clone as a genre name anymore, but Souls-like is still very handy-dandy. I tend to personally use frameworks like Bartle's taxonomy of player types to more accurately state my preferences. The idea is to use game design's end results to categorize the experiences you want to invoke, not just pure mechanics. The simple one uses 4 quadrants of player styles: killers, achievers, socializers, and explorers. A game like VR Chat prioritizes social interactions, sharing creations, presenting one's identity, mirror group talks, which surprisingly is mostly not for vanity actually. Socializers will tend to flock to this game more than, say, achievers. You'll still find all these people, but there's definitely a concentration of a specific type of person when you aggregate lists of popular maps. I am an explorer with some leanings to achievers. I play VR Chat to explore worlds, see what people have to teach, testing out how things work, traversing each space in its own unique way, being able to transfer what I find into my own creations as I explore new tools within my inner worlds. That's what I find fulfilling. The output is one where I sometimes share these creations or findings to have discussions, which is nice, but not the main goal. So with all that context, the genres I would say to Raz's question is platformers, action, and strategy. Also VR, even though it's not really a genre, but it is a genre. I'll explain my reasoning in a bit. Platformers are exciting as it's an exploration through physical digital spaces, trying to figure out how environments work so you can land correctly, to meaningfully traverse through a space, for that movement itself to matter. It's the reason I love games like Cave Story, Kirby, Spyro, Super Mario World for the GBA specifically, and A Short Hike. I particularly like more actiony games: Nier, Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku 2, Hades, Dark Souls, and Metal Gear. I do trend towards Minecraft levels of action, like you're still exploring places and you happen to be thrown a curveball that you can't run through, where the thrill of battling it out, trying to survive, wondering if you're gonna lose all your diamonds, takes center stage. Then you get a moment to relax and take in your surroundings with a better understanding of methods to proceed in the next encounter. Fortnite Zero Build is also a great modern example of this, and would be a favorite game if it wasn't attached to a predatory monetization scheme. Yikes kids, skins used to be free, and you wouldn't lose access to the maps you liked. Strategy is there too, but within the context of the other two. Dragon Quest III is great, it's not a platformer, but you traverse a whole expansive world. It's turn-based where you can always set it down, but I'm always on the edge of my seat to know if I'll make it out of a battle. I still get to have input on armor or weapon selection and battle tactics. It's very fun to strategize what outcome could be if I execute my plans correctly. This is why Portal is fun. It's a puzzle game, but it doesn't feel like a puzzle game. It feels like I'm strategizing my way out in the most efficient or exciting way possible. StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty is probably the most proper strategy game I got into. I was actually almost pro level. Like, I studied that game so hard that my main species was random, so I'd have an advantage over my opponent in the early game. Plus, any strategies that worked for or against the species being played allowed me to observe what to improve in subsequent matches. I only stopped playing because I didn't get my proper ranking in 1v1 when seasons were first invented in SE2. I was so annoyed I just dropped the ranked games and went to custom scenarios. I can be a bit of a salty overachiever sometimes. Unlike platforming and action, where I will try a lot of titles if the game is in the ballpark of those genres, the number of games in the typical strategy genre I enjoy does make it a lot weaker for me. Although I tend to like most real-time tower defense, turn-based, or grand strategy games, people sometimes ruin it for me. Like Pokemon Gold is fun because it feels like a creative process trying to reverse engineer what outcomes I could have with my Pokemon friends. I get to explore that system and strategize what I could or may be able to do. When someone breaks out the program that creates spreadsheets of what the best Pokemon IVs are, how to breed the best eggs, which moves do the most damage combined, I get bored because at that point it's a solved problem. You're just executing a list of commands like a computer. I'm actually pro being spoiled on mechanics or puzzles that don't feel fun. Cheating in a single player game isn't much of an issue to me. I also love Excel spreadsheets, as long as it doesn't touch my games. Basically, I don't want the correct answer. I want to explore a question, like how do I corner the sus one without dying? Why should I bring civs together when I have artillery? Where do I sneak my plague into every country? What are the best spells to perform and which monsters should accompany me? Alien shooter tower defense. Did you know that Alien Shooter was also a tower defense title? It's very silly. Virtual reality, aka VR, is an early genre because it's a new medium. VR is a platform to create 3D spaced experiences, but because the library of good VR games is small, with much of its design being imports of 2D screen designs and game loops, it's clear it'll be a common piece of equipment in which genres are formed on, but in 2024, it's definitely classified as its own genre for now. With companies realizing movies are fantastic in VR, maybe it'll have the PS2 living room computer effect, where the family device leads to people exploring VR games, making a more nuanced VR language more tenable, which is great because the base controllers makes all three of the other genres fit so perfectly together. Platformers allow for a traversing of a space. I am literally now traversing the space with many degrees of motion. Action feels so much more real and urgent without needing to add much. Like gunfights in Half-Life Alyx feels taxing because of just how much you need to consider, even when the fights are basically much smaller scale Half-Life series fights. And for that you need so much more strategy. Your body becomes a whole new factor in position alone. Like you need to use real military tactics to effectively manage some problems now, or waste a bunch of ammo. The best way I could describe it is a sport you play. You do just run around and play with silly objects at the end of the day, but there's a lot of thinking that goes into it where you can get both real-time strategy on the field and spreadsheet nerds to crunch numbers of what the optimal set of moves will or should have been. I could talk about this forever. The original video this video is remastering shows that even when I'm tired I can keep going. Comment below what other topics you'd like to see me talk about. Doesn't have to be about video games. Art, furry, politics, and much more are within my bucket. But I do love discussing the video game medium. I just don't get asked much about it unless I'm streaming a game, and I haven't streamed for a bit, so it's not a bad idea to ask here. I am writing multiple video game reviews, but with the amount of research and opinion piecing I'm doing, those aren't going to be out anytime soon. But the smaller questions could be, if you'd like to see the original video and get your name in the credits for a mere $1, go to patreon.com/purecore, where lovely gamers like these amazing folks scrolling by have helped contribute to me having the time to make these videos. I also try to post art and secret info when I can. purecore.com has all my other socials. Go check out the games I mentioned here or in the original video, like the water. Don't forget the water. This isn't about hydration, it's just I have a whole story about the water between two games, and I'll talk about it one day because I need people to understand my pain, but today is not that day. Thanks for watching, keep your game genres pure. I'll see you next time, everyone.